Welcome to another episode of Your Spiritual Journey. And before we get started, I just want to mention that if you're listening to us in the car or listening to us while you're doing the dishes or however you listen to us, on your phone, on your laptop, or if you're watching us on YouTube, I just want to mention it would be wonderful if you would like us, subscribe, follow us, even consider supporting us through Patreon, because we are here for you and we would like to be here for a long, long time. We are here to support your spiritual journey. So whatever support you can give us in whatever way, we would appreciate it. Thank you so much. So today we have a special guest, Reverend Mary Ann Trifaro. She's credentialed, ordained religious science minister, and she's also a certified marriage officiant. Prior to coming to Pittsburgh 8 years ago, she was the minister of the Center for Spiritual Living in Warwick, Rhode Island, and she did that for 2.5 years. She was also the minister of the Cherry Creek Church of Religious Science in Denver, Colorado for over 14 years. She began her spiritual studies in 1976 in Los Angeles and completed her ministerial training at the Ernest Holmes College in San Jose, California. At that time, she was employed at the San Jose Church, and her main responsibility was the School of Ministry. So while in Denver, Colorado, she was a member of the Rotary Club, and I just want to give a shout out to Rotary Clubs everywhere. I'm a longtime member of Rotary. And it's a wonderful service organization. She performs weddings, teaches, and counsels on the importance of developing a spiritual inner life. And that's what we're all about. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you. And I have to say, I have not known Mary Ann very long. We did meet at a recent psychic fair, and she's just charming. No better word than charming for you. So without further ado, we're going to take you back a couple years to your childhood, and then you can bring us forward.
Okay. All right. Oh, what a wonderful introduction. And it is a delight to be here and talk to you and have this experience. So you want me to begin with where I grew up? In Washington, Pennsylvania. And my background was Catholic. And I went 12 years to a Catholic school and loved it. Didn't know that I didn't love it. And then as soon as I graduated from high school, for a short time there, I did go to acting school at the Pittsburgh Playhouse. And then I went to San Francisco. And that was the summer of 1967. It opened my mind and experiences, and I just did not know that anything like that existed.
I think that was called the Summer of Love,
It
wasn't
was certainly called the Summer of Love. It certainly was. It was an amazing experience, Bob, just amazing. And it opened my mind. It opened my mind to so many things. That's when I discovered Edgar Cayce. I discovered numerology, astrology. It was just like so many things I was introduced to at that time. And not to mention some great music that I listened to. So that was fun too. And then I went to New York because at that time I was still pursuing an acting career. Thought that was my career. And I lived in New York for 3 years, and then it was just too cold. So I decided to go to LA. And I continued pursuing my acting career. And I came upon the teachings of science of mind. And it's also called religious science. It's both. It's called religious science, and the textbook that we use is called Science of Mind.
Now, just for a moment, I want to
Certainly.
ask, so what happened to this Catholic background in between here?
Well, here we are, right here. When I discovered this teaching while I was living in Los Angeles, the reason I was drawn to it was because it spoke to the creative aspect of God. And I thought, as an actress, I needed to be creative. I wanted to tap into the creative aspect. So that drew me into it. And then I loved it so much, and there were many, as you can imagine, living in LA, many people were in this teaching who were also in the acting field. And then I went on to the school ministry in San Jose, and then I went from there when I graduated to my church in Denver, outside of Denver, Aurora, Colorado, and I was there 14 years. So to answer your question, what happened to my Catholic background?
Right.
Well, I guess when I first moved to San Francisco, I just found so many other interests that I think maybe I dropped away from the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. However, I might like to interject another little story here, if I may.
Go ahead.
When I was growing up, a couple things about that. Living in Washington, PA, a couple things I want to tell you is there was a convent associated with the church I went to, and the nuns were all cloistered, except for when they were teaching. Mm-hmm. And the priests had cars, and they were down at the pizza shop. And I thought, I think I'd rather be a priest. Yeah, well, they didn't allow that so much in the Catholic Church. That's one thing I wanted to tell you. And then another thing is my mother, again, an amazing woman, and she went to college in Brooklyn, New York, and became a nurse, met and married my dad from Staten Island, New York, brought him back to Washington, Pennsylvania, had an old Victorian home that she turned into a nursing home. And when I was growing up, I'd say my Hail Marys to the patients. Now, fast forward, when I returned to the Pittsburgh area after my many travels, I did work for hospice for 10 years as a chaplain. And I thought, I got my beginnings saying my Hail Marys in my mother's nursing home.
So you came full circle.
Full circle to that. So backing up, I ended up after the School of Ministry in Denver, Colorado. And I was there 14 years. And it was a glorious life for me. I was so happy. I feel like I had a very successful church, a couple hundred people. And I even had a little TV show at one point called Modern Day Mystics with Mary Ann.
Yeah, how did that come about?
Well, it was backing up. When I was in the school of ministry in San Jose, I needed to do a final project, a senior project, and I thought, well, with my background in theater, I probably could do a little show. So I called the local cable station and told them my idea, and they said, great. And so I had a TV show.
So what was this? Was it just you? Were you interviewing
I interviewed
guests?
people. I
Okay.
interviewed a lot of my teachers and other ministers, and I just interviewed them. And at
Okay.
the very end, the last thing I always said was that this show is dedicated to world peace. I think that hippie in me, came through, and it still does today. It still does today. I just believe in peace and harmony so much, and I want us all to get along so well.
Yeah.
So my church in Denver, 14 years, and it was phenomenal. I had a wonderful, wonderful time. And then I went to Rhode Island because I wanted to be closer to my parents who were aging at that time. And then I moved back into this area, Pittsburgh area, about 20 years ago, or maybe a little bit longer than that. And then I worked for the hospice for about 10 years. And I retired from that, and now I'm currently working as the minister for the Center for Spiritual Living Greater Pittsburgh. And I've been doing that for about 3 or 4 years, plus many, many other things I do. So
I know how long it took me to be able to schedule you for this. So
yes,
you're a busy lady.
I am a very busy lady. I'm on the Retired Ministers Committee. I'm not sure why, because I'm not quite retired, but I'm on that, and I'm on a couple other committees. So I keep myself pretty busy.
Yeah. So I am curious about a couple things.
Sure.
In looking over your website and thinking about all that you offer, I mean, basically, you will provide a ceremony to anybody's liking. So if no matter what the marriage ceremony is or what the passing ceremony might be, you mold that to fit with their vision of what it might be.
True. It is so true. Because personally, I believe that God is everywhere. The goodness of God is everywhere, and in everyone, and in all faiths. And to me, having an Italian background, I have to say that I may want to relate this to food, because food's very important. I love food. But to me, you can have many different types of food, traditions, or cultures, but it's still food. It still nurtures and nourishes a person. And that's what I feel spirituality is about. A person's spirituality might be developed by their culture, where they live, or the traditions they grew up with, but it still nourishes and nurtures them. And that's what I believe, that all faiths are good. If you practice kindness, there's a few things that are important. Kindness, respect, integrity, those are very, very important to me. So it doesn't matter what a person's faith is. If it is a wedding ceremony, I will definitely incorporate their traditions, their faith traditions in the wedding if they invite me to do that. And the same with a funeral service, a passing service. I will always make it personal to the couple.
So I guess in many faith traditions, there's a requirement for premarital counseling.
Yes.
More or less to make sure that and I always laugh at this even before I say it, because premarital counseling is to make sure that the marriage is going to last, that people understand what they're stepping into, and yet 50% of marriages fail, within, I guess, like 5 years. So I wondered if you offered that, or if you see kind of the futility in in doing that, because it is what it is. It's a relationship that's either going to grow together or grow apart, but you know that it's going to grow. It's going to change.
Right. Well, good question. If asked, I would. I don't require it, no. However, I do private counseling. My phone is always available. I mean, I offer anybody counseling services if they call and need it, and I do get calls, to help people move through some emotional difficulty. It's not related necessarily to the wedding ceremony, but just in general, I do offer counseling to help somebody work through some emotional challenges. In fact, I don't know. I'm going to just throw this in if you don't mind. It's happened to me this morning. One of my neighbors, I do live in an apartment building, and I heard the gentleman beneath me screaming out, and he was in fear or something. I didn't know if he fell, or so I called my landlord and asked her what to do. And anyway, long story short, I ended up going down there, and he was just scared. He might have had some emotional concerns. I think his daughter is worried about him emotionally, but he just woke up scared, and he was calling out. He didn't fall, but I was there helping him, and that it brought me back to my work with hospice. Like I was able to just be with him and say some prayers that he was familiar with. They were Catholic prayers, but I knew them well, so I just did my best to comfort him until his daughter showed up. So my point is that, I'm there. I'm there if somebody needs me or if I can help out in some way.
Yeah. Okay.
As well as the private counseling, yes.
Sure. Well, you've had quite a checkered history. I shouldn't use that word, checkered. I think about these travels back and forth across the country, but even that first decision to pull up stakes and go to California that first time, that's a pretty big move for somebody from Washington, PA.
I missed out a little piece there.
Yeah.
So I was in acting school, and there was a guy involved. What can I say?
Okay.
So he was going back to San Francisco, so I just thought, I left that out of the story.
There's some extra room in the car. Why don't I take it?
Oh, well, why not?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was a guy involved.
All right. Well,
there usually is.
That's safer than some people I knew from back then who just stuck a thumb out and
hitchhiked.
Hitchhiked across Route 66 and got to California that way.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So you took a safer route.
It was fine. It got me there. Yeah. It got me there, and it just was mind expanding. Yeah. It was like, wow. San Francisco's a little bit different than Washington, Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've interviewed a number of people on this program who started out Catholic.
Yeah.
And for a variety of reasons, typically negative experiences, but at times just sort of outgrowing
yes
what they had learned and moved on from that.
Right.
And because of those discussions that I've had with people,
right,
I wonder about your view of Catholicism and its place in your life, or have you felt the need to reject pieces of it, or just sort of incorporated it and moved on from it, or what's your perspective?
Thank you for it. That's again another good question. I have never had personally a negative experience with my Catholic upbringing or teaching. I felt like it gave me an amazing foundation, and so I honor it, I respect it. But and as I have grown and evolved and learned so many other things, I see that it as I said, gave me the foundation, but there was so much more. One thing I do remember about the Catholic Church is anytime you ask a serious question, they'd go, "That's a mystery." And I personally wanted answers.
Yeah.
I didn't want a mystery. And I feel that I have all the answers I need. And if I have a question, I know where the answer is. And the answer is in my heart. I believe all I have to do is be still and know I am God. That resides within me. One thing that I have learned through my current spiritual practice is that God is in my heart. And the Catholic Church seems to have taught me that God is somewhere in the sky and sometimes waving a finger at you.
Yeah.
And I learned that's not where it is. The God I know is in my heart. The God I know is everywhere at all times, in every one. That the God I know is powerful and loving and good. And I can tap into it. And everyone can. Everyone can. If we just take a few minutes to be quiet and listen. Listen. You know the word intuition means inner teacher. That's what it means. We have intuition. We have a feeling. We know. We're always guided. I believe that. That's my truth.
I'm with you on that. For sure.
Thank you.
There's, I guess, in considering the path that you've taken and where you are now, I guess I experience a lot of people in the people who I associate with, I guess, for lack of a better term, and have relationships with, who have arrived pretty much at the same understanding that you have just expressed. And that leads to a feeling of oneness.
Yes.
That we are all part of the same creation.
Absolutely.
And of the same creator.
Absolutely.
That we are all made of energy, as is everything.
Correct.
And that energy is what connects us, that makes us one and the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that, I guess, that is a far cry from where any of us started.
Oh, yes.
In terms of our thoughts about what this life is all about and what we're doing here on earth. So my curiosity is about that journey to getting to that point, and whether it felt to you like a gradual process that was a path that you were led down, or that you followed, just intuitively, as you say, or if there was an aha moment that spoke to you, that said, "Oh, this is the perspective that I need to have about all of this." So, could you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely.
Was it gradual, or was this aha moment that got you there?
It's continuous. I have many aha moments. I have still aha moments because in my opinion, the path is continuously evolving because the way I see it, we have lots of things that have been buried in our subconscious mind, and we don't know when they're going to gurgle up. And then all of a sudden we think, I wonder why I think that. And you go back and you realize an experience or somebody telling you that, and you rethink it and you put some new perspective on it and you learn something new. So it is continuously evolving for me. It never ends. I mean, there's always something to learn in some new way to raise your vibration, to learn more, to accept more, to understand more, to be expressed, fully expressed, to live your best self, to be able to be creative and learn. I think that's important too, is to be curious about life, not feel like you know it all, never arriving, really. It's like being curious helps have an open mind and learn about other people. I have many different friends, and sometimes I put them in categories because even though they're friends, they may not think the way I do, and in different areas. And yet I know what I believe is that the core of everyone and everything is God. And to me, God is love. So I try to weave things back to that truth of love and then maybe see it differently. And then I want to just throw this in. There's, in my opinion, a difference between truth and a fact. What I shared about, in my opinion, God being love and God being everywhere, that to me is a truth. That's a principle that I live on. And yet facts show up. Like maybe somebody might have said something or you might have said something. So there was a small detail, but it's not the ultimate truth. There's only one ultimate truth, in my opinion, and that is we're all made in the image and likeness of God, and God is love. That's my take on it.
Okay.
Which question did I answer?
Well, that pretty much answers any question that anybody could ever have. That's the foundational truth.
For me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's often, people say there's a difference between belief and truth.
Yes.
And belief and faith. Because what you believe then allows you to see certain things and not see certain things.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
your beliefs are the lens in which
and they can be
that
changed.
you use to view the world, right?
And they can be changed. It kind of reminds me of a story I remember reading once about a little girl that was looking out the window at her father burying their pet, and she was crying, and somebody came and said, let's look over this window. And her mother was planting flowers, at a different area of the house. So I think that is a metaphor for which window do we want to look out of? Do we want to be happy and see something that's alive and growing? Or, and we have right to grieve over loss, absolutely, but we also have the right to choose. If you don't mind, I would like to just take another minute to share with you the basic tenets of this philosophy, Science of Mind. And the first one is that God is all there is, which we've been talking about. And the second one is, since God is all there is, then I am one with God and you're one with God. That's the unification step. And then the third step is the realization step, which is, since God is all there is and I'm one with God, I want to make real my experience by knowing that I'm healthy and abundant and happy. That's my realization step. And the fourth step is, I'm so grateful. It's Thanksgiving. I give thanks for this. And the last step is release, and it's very important to let go, because otherwise we worry too much. We have to just pretend we put an order in and it's being shipped. So those are the 5 steps that we talk about. And those 5 steps that I just shared in my teaching, that's called a treatment. It's a prayer, basically, but it has a step process to it. So it's powerful to me.
Okay, let me explore that just for a minute then.
Sure.
All right, you call this a treatment. So who and how do you administer this treatment? Is it someone who comes to you for this treatment, or is it your whole congregation as you're doing weekly sermons, or how does one get this treatment?
Well, yes, if somebody were to call me and ask me for treatment or a prayer, this is what I would do. I would never, and we're taught not to pray for people who don't ask for it, because we don't know what they want. They may want something different than what we think they should want. So I don't interject my thinking on another person. However, if a person came to me and asked me specifically to treat or pray for health or prosperity, then I know that that's what they're looking for, and then I do this 5-step process. There's also classes that I teach, and that I teach these principles. This form of prayer, this is a form of treatment, affirmative prayer, and I teach that as well as some other techniques like meditation or affirmations. The whole purpose is to retrain a person individually wants to retrain their thinking from the negative, the fears, to the positive, to the good, to see a lesson, to learn, to grow, and to move forward into a life that is fulfilled.
All right. So if somebody wanted to get a treatment from Reverend Mary Ann, how do they do that? So they've listened to this podcast and said, "Boy, that sounds interesting to me." So how do they contact you?
Well, they can contact me through the website, by calling me, by emailing me. Will you have my contact information available? Or?
I will have that up on my website.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Well, then I anticipate hearing from someone, or many someones.
Maybe many someones. We have, I've been doing this for 4 months now. When this is broadcast, it'll be 6 months, because it'll be a couple months before this is aired. But we already have over 1,000 downloads, so there could be many, many people
Wow.
wanting to get a hold of you.
Wonderful.
So at the end of each podcast, and we are coming to that point where it's time for us to wrap this up, I do ask my guests, what words would they like to leave the audience with? So those can be any words you want, keeping in mind that this is a family show. But anything that you would like to leave the audience with.
Thank you so much. First, I want to say thank you to you. This has been very enjoyable. I appreciate this time and this opportunity. And what I want everyone to know is that they're sacred, they're special, they're good, no matter what they've learned. However, they may have doubted themselves or wherever their self-esteem might need to be improved, is just remember the goodness that they are, to focus on that. And I believe individually, all of us together can change the world, can live in a peaceful world by recognizing the goodness in each other, in ourselves and each other. So that's my closing thought, would be the best person. Be the best person. Let your light shine and let others see that and help others see it.
Okay. It's a marvelous message. For all of you out there, keep in mind that you are beautiful, that you are holy, and just be the best you that you can be. Until next time, this has been your spiritual journey.